amigos, ego sumo dadai voces. Vietos conmigo. What's up? As you can tell by the title, this is going to be a bit of a loaded topic, but I was asked a question in regards to this, so I figured I will tie it up with a nice little spiritual twisty bow, and I will present that to you now. And I just want to let you know that I was hanging out with Luca all evening, and so he might pop in from here and there, but either which way, the Serpente Septim guided me to film this because it does have to do with the topic of entering the physical vessel, because I do have a video about vacating the vessel, so I'm just gonna meander along and, as I said, let them flow nicely all together, okay, as a nice little ombre effect, either which way. So I was asked, what about Roe versus Wade and spirituality, and what does it mean for the collective? There is really not going to be one set answer for this, because as you know, my content, what I talk about here, I focus on the individual. Yes, the collective narrative can be appealing, entertaining to look at, but one ideally ought to not take it seriously. It could be Roe versus Wade, it could be pick a thing, anything, okay? It ought to not be taken seriously. It ought to not be passionately felt about. It ought to not be that, because anytime a new narrative is dropped, it's more like just dropping metaphorical bombs into the collective to rile them up, to get them to focus on this, that, and the third, and motherfuckers have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. So there's always a story behind the story, a whole other topic altogether. So whatever story the Roe versus Wade thing has going on behind it, that's really what's going on behind the scenes right now, to be distracted away from. Catch my drift. Okay. I do just want to say that a lot of big stories are dropping since, obviously the year 2020, and that is simply short synopsis because the collective rise in consciousness is accelerating. Okay, that's why things seem to be happening quickly, right? Because the Earth Matrix collective consciousness is speeding up. So things that might have went on 10 years from now in time, let's say, are going on now, because it's sped up, because the humanoids are emancipating themselves consciously very, very rapidly now, and that's just simply why things are happening, okay? Because when the collective speeds up, then the narrative also speeds up. Different stories speed up, different major stories speed up, okay? So that is part of it, and I'm somewhat in a trance right now. I just wanted to let you know that with this collective thing, you don't always have to follow what the collective is doing, because any story, there's always a story behind the story, but there's also, you see the poles very, very clearly when you look at a collective narrative. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that I have never had my ego turned up by observing something in the collective, okay? But because I have, years ago, whenever the fuck, I can tell you how to get out of it. Because if you're concerned about Roe versus Wade or any other narrative that's going on, cut that shit out right now. You have nothing for yourself to be concerned about. Now, the reason why you don't need to concern yourself is because any story that is delivered in the mainstream narrative is really just for the ego to grasp at, right? That's why you have motherfuckers like they fight amongst each other and they riot and they protest and whatever. And there's nothing wrong. I mean, listen, a peaceful protest, if that's what you feel like doing and it makes you feel good and you're with like-minded individuals for the same cause, ain't nothing wrong with that. But I mean, ain't no need to get to fucking violence and rioting. You know what I mean? Like, what is that gonna do? I mean, a lot of times they're crisis actors that you see on there. Just saying, just toss it out there. A lot of times there are. I mean, look into crisis act. But either which way. So when you are seeing all of these broadcasts going on, or perhaps you've even seen things in real life. I mean, personally, I don't see things in real life, but we're gonna get into that, okay? So anything that you see in the collective has nothing to do with you. That's what I'm saying. Where I'm at, everything is peaceful, everything is perfect, everything is wonderful. Okay, why is that? Because me, as someone who's not following the collective, just observing it neutrally from that vantage point of the fourth dimension, as I said in my most previous video, I was also with Lucifer, I am observing it from a perspective where it's like, it's not going to touch me, it's not going to affect me, it's not going to rile me up, it's not going to make me very happy, how either which way you want to look at it, okay? And we're not even going to talk about religious or political things in regards to this Roe versus Wade thing, because that's egoistic stuff. Because the ego does exist, though, the ego's innate reaction is going to want to respond to a trigger, because remember, the ego is attached to the 3D. So the ego is going to notice the narrative, because the ego is very close to whatever narrative is being dropped. That doesn't mean that your soul higher perspective is. So if you feel the pull, the tug of the ego that's trying to draw you into any which way, you observe it, you say, wait a second, there's positive, there's negative. In every situation, whether you agree with the narrative, whether you don't. The first thing I do want to ask you, if a narrative is causing some sort of disturbance for you, ask yourself this, and this could be any narrative, okay? Is it causing a disturbance within you? What about it is causing a disturbance in you? Did you have an experience similar to the story that the mainstream narrative is putting out there? Did someone you know have an experience similar to what the mainstream narrative is putting out there? Or are you worried that someone you care about might experience the story that the mainstream narrative is putting out?
I don't even remember the questions, but this is why I have it in the video. You write that shit down, you ask yourself that.
Because here's the thing, any narrative, right? Someone is saying, that's great, they're not killing babies anymore. And someone else is like, fuck that. Someone has the right to choose what they want to do with their own body. The government shouldn't be fucking dictating that. Listen, okay, you are the only one, you, no matter what's going on in your plumbing, in fucking basement, okay, however you identify in your soul, however it is, okay, however you view yourself, you are not a victim of the narrative. You are not being swayed by what the collective is focusing on. You are not getting overly excited, overly riled up over something that has nothing to do with you. Remember those questions? Did you answer them? If your responses came out where you're just unbothered, you're not concerned about anything, guess what? I guarantee you're not bothered by the official narrative. You might be bothered by another one, okay? You might have been bothered by one in the past, but even if you've been bothered by one in the past, ask yourself those questions. I guarantee you're going to get into a fucking little enlightenment session, okay? I'm seeing someone's face in my mind right now. That's fucking weird. If you have answered those questions, pause the video, whatever. Now you're back here. You're like, okay, I'm good. I am absolved of everything that ain't mine, and I don't want it.
Boom.
Namaste. So let's just go with that. So now let's say you've purified yourself of that. Now you can see from the perspective of any story that is being dropped to keep the ego entangled and snared in something. You understand that nothing about the official narrative is going to affect you. No one has authority over your physical vessel but you.
You already know that.
You already know that. Okay, not the government, not your parents, not your grandparents, not your partner. I mean, unless you're in the bedroom and you want your partner to have a little authority over you. You know what I'm saying?
That can be fun sometimes if you're into that thing.
Ain't no one telling you what to do, and it's not even going to affect you. Because what's going on here, you see individuals, they're going this way, they're going that way, right? They're fighting amongst each other, blowing shit up. I don't know what they're doing, okay? You're looking at it from... But I know that none of this is going to affect me. It's not going to affect anyone I care about either.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Because when you are in an enlightened state, you have no worries, let alone about the official narrative. Pick one, whatever it is. Now, you might conduct yourself in certain ways in regards to the official narrative, right? Like you might do that with your physical vessel, but you know that nothing is going to affect you. For example, why is this whole abortion thing a hot topic? Because number one, it has to do with sex. Okay, it has to do with sex. Sex is typically, and this is why a lot of individuals have like fears around sex. Let's just get into it. I mean, I said we're gonna have a loaded topic, so we're gonna have a loaded fucking topics. Why is it a controversial topic? Because I mean, you have to do it with some motherfuckers are calling it murder, and then you have abortion comes after you have sex. I mean, unless it doesn't, unless immaculate conception.
I don't know.
But typically, right? So you have death and sex. You have plutonian fucking 8th house scorpion shit.
Taboo, motherfucker.
That's why it's such a loaded topic for motherfuckers. Do most motherfuckers understand that from a metaphysical perspective? No, they do not. But you and I do. So we can see that the topic of sex and death were always considered taboo. What programs did you maybe see going on around you during your formative years, or especially like, oh, wasn't that the funniest? I don't know if they still do this, but when they tried to teach sex ed in fucking school, that shit was,
wow,
that was great. Like that was, I mean, damn, okay? I don't know if they still do that, but wow. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, it's typically, there's a fear factor associated with it, right? Be mindful of this, be careful of that, don't do that, abstain. I mean, did any motherfucker abstain after hearing that? I think not. Okay, so death, and again, death, it's like, and especially like a murder, right? If you're calling something a murder or a suicide or whatever, any type of death is considered taboo as well, because typically it's like, oh, someone died and they're no longer here, and there's typically like a mourning and a grieving, and motherfuckers are sad and a low vibration, blah blah blah, because they feel like it's a loss and whatever. Okay, so that's just why this abortion topic is so lit, I want to say. Okay, it is because it has to do with sex and death. Okay, that's why. It, because 8th house, you know, 8th house, Scorpio, Pluto,
Heavy shit.
and we do know, gracias, amares. 8th house, Scorpio, Pluto, the United States just had its Pluto return. Oh my god, just had its Pluto return. I remember I made a fucking video on it. I think it was in January 2022, but it was sometime in 2022, and now we're in 2022, and the moon is in Gemini, and I'm fucking loving it. Either which way, right? Sex and death, Pluto. Gracias, that's what it is. That's why it came up now. Pluto, the topics of Pluto, sex and death, Roe versus Wade being overturned, revolution, right? Judgment, upheaval, and sex and death. Oh my god, I love you, Luca. He's here right now. Fucking love it. That's why. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm channeling demon. We are talking about that the United States just has Pluto return. Now what happens is Roe versus Wade shit, right? Gets motherfuckers riled up, so we can look at it also from the astrological perspective, but we can also look at it as a perspective of like the mainstream narrative. I got a new water bottle. I fucking love that. That was so fucking good. Oh my god. Whew. Okay, so
When I'm just listening to really good songs, you see my earbuds?
when we're talking about sex and death, the Pluto return, it makes sense now that we look at it, okay? Now that we look at it. So we see why it's going on from an astrological level, however you want to look at it. And you might see things why this is going on from different perspectives. Like if you're really good with numerology and shit, you might see why it's going on from a numerological standpoint. I'm very hungry. But either which way. So if you see this going on, you know that number one, you ask yourself all those questions, okay? You emancipate yourself out of that, okay? You're not worried about you. You're not worried about someone you care about. You're chill, because you know that you, as the operant power, as the all, observing the third dimensional plane from the higher plane, how they say in the Kabbalion,
I think they do talk about the planes.
the planes of existence, right? There are different levels, and those who are on the higher levels move about those on the lower levels like pawns in a chess game, and they legit say something like that in the Kabbalion. I'm not just bullshitting, okay? They say something like that, but I forget what they call it. There was like a term that they used, but I forget in the moment. Let's say we're in the higher plane and we're looking at the 3D individuals, ones who are in their ego, and they're fighting over the abortion thing, okay, whatever. And they might have a valid reason to be happy about it, or they might have a valid reason to be upset about it. But you, from the higher perspective, you're like, that's a story that's going on. Number one, to divide and conquer the motherfuckers. Number two, to get the collective to move in a certain direction. Number three, to cover up another story that probably ain't no motherfucker ever gonna know. Okay, so there's that. So you're like, but none of this is gonna affect me. None of this does affect me, and none of this will affect anyone that I care about. Because let's say even if any official narrative is going on, and we're talking about the loaded topics, right? Anything, okay? If someone is worried about someone else, there's still the energy of worry, and that's going on within them. So it's not necessarily gonna have anything to do with anyone else. No one is being protected if someone is worrying about them, okay? It's just, that's an energy that, let's say someone is concerned about, you know, so-and-so in regards to like a mainstream narrative story, right? They're concerned about it, so now they're worried about someone else. They're not worried for them, they're worried about someone else. But guess what? That worry is still going on within their vessel, so it's going to cause issues for them, because they're the one that's carrying the worry, even if it's for someone else. So
never worry about nothing.
Because if you worry about nothing, you have nothing to worry about. I promise you, I promise you, I promise you. I don't sit up here talking out my booty hole. I tell you from experience, okay? I would not be sitting up here if I am in a humanoid vessel, identifying as an alien, but I'm in a humanoid vessel and I know I'm a soul and I pilot the fucking Enterprise, you know what I'm saying? You do too. And if I know that and you don't have to identify as an alien, you could identify as whoever the fuck you want, but I'm telling you for me, right? So I'm like, I'm in a humanoid vessel, right? So they're in a humanoid vessel, whoever it is, hey, how you doing? But they know that they're greater than their vessel because they know they're the one piloting the fucking vessel. So if I'm able to be up here clear and not be swayed by any collective bullshit.
And it could be valid to someone, it might be, from a logical perspective.
But from a soul perspective, none of what is going on in the collective, what the masses are doing, the third dimensional motherfuckers are doing, it's bullshit. It has nothing to do with anything. And it's okay for someone to be ensnared in the matrix, because in this lifetime they might not have chosen to wake up. But those of you that did, like the ones that are still here, you're the real MVP motherfucker, you watching this video, hey, what's up, how you doing? You know that if you worry about yourself or what's going on in the collective or about someone else, you understand that that worry, it's going to attract to you because you're the one that's worried. So worry gets you nowhere. Thinking fear-based thoughts. Oh, but what if, let's just say, pick a narrative. It could be Roe versus Wade, it could be anything. What if blah, blah, blah narrative affects so-and-so? No, the narrative, let's just look at it from the higher planes. You're looking down. You're like, oh, that's what's going on in the narrative. That's just like you, let's just say, I always use weird metaphors, as a fish tank and you're looking at it and you're eating the fish, right? The fish are gonna run to where the food is. Okay, that's just, get out of here. So that was a good metaphor, but so it's like, but you're looking down and you see the fish being fed something and now they're rushing towards it, but you're not participating in it. You're not in the fish tank. You're from the higher perspective, observing you as a soul, you as the eye of the all. So whatever is going on in the collective has nothing to do with you. I promise you, okay, from personal experience, whatever fear factor, and since we're talking about fucking abortion, all the fear factor that motherfuckers were spoon-fed about having sex, be careful of this, make sure you do that, what? I tell you what, I never bought none of that bullshit.
And I've had wonderful sexual experiences.
I can tell you, okay?
Wonderful.
Why? Because I don't have a fucking fear, false perception about sex. So the only reason someone would be involved in any narrative, right? Any narrative, okay? They have some sort of false perception in regards to that. Now, how it got there, that's a whole other topic, right? Because a lot of times individuals are carrying around programs and paradigms that they didn't even know they were, and would they have intentionally put themselves in those type of situations? No, they would not, but that's another topic. So when someone is carrying themselves or the fear energy for someone they care about, what are they attracting? They're attracting that to them. They ain't doing nothing to the other motherfucker, although they might start seeing things for them to be fearful of in regards to the other motherfucker, because they're creating their own experience. But it's really the energy coming back to the source, which is you, which is me, which is whoever is observing something and either choosing to actively participate in it or to just look at it from a higher perspective and be like, this has nothing to do with me, has nothing to do with anyone I care about, I'm gonna keep it moving. That's the spiritual perspective. Okay, so it could be Roe versus Wade, it could be anything. But now to get into the more, I don't know, I guess spiritual aspect, taboo aspect of the Roe versus Wade shit, the whole argument here is about, I don't even know how you pronounce this word, body autonomy. I think that's what it is, right? You're in charge of your own vessel. The government should not be, no one should be. Here's the spiritual truth of that. No one is in charge of your vessel. No one. No one except you, because you're the pilot. You're the soul piloting the vessel, but sometimes when motherfuckers enter the vessel, they choose to forget that, right? Like that's the whole thing about entering the vessel, okay? So you have control over your vessel. However you carry yourself, that's what it's going to be. But no one else is going to have control over your vessel.
No.
So if you are always in control of what goes on in your vessel, you can dictate the health of your vessel, you can dictate even the dis-ease of your vessel. You can dictate if you want a pregnancy to occur or not. And I don't mean medically or scientifically. I don't mean what you got going on in your basement plumbing, okay? And you could behave however you want to behave in the third dimensional plane in your vessel, and if you do not want a pregnancy, it will not happen. And I don't mean precautions. I don't mean abstaining. I don't mean none of that.
I promise you.
Because a situation like that, or any situation narrative, is not going to present itself to you unless you are an energetic match to it. That's why I said ask yourself those questions, okay? But from a higher perspective, whatever's going on in the collective is not affecting you, because homie, if you don't want to be involved in a pregnancy, you fucking won't be. You won't. I promise you. You're in control of your vessel at all times. You gotta take my word on it. You are always the one in control of your vessel. No matter what is going on in the collective, you're the one who dictates what you want to happen. You're the one who dictates your health, your potential dis-ease, whatever it is. But if you're worried about something and you're sensing that it's detrimental, clear that shit out. Clear the fucking browser cache. However you say catch.
I don't fucking know. I don't give a
When you realize that your third dimensional experience is going to be dictated by the energy that you are steering the fucking vessel with, piloting the fucking enterprise with, you know that there is not a goddamn thing in the collective that is going to affect you if you're not worried about it. So cease any type of fear-based emotion in regards to any collective story. Just keep doing you, go about your business. I promise you, no one will disturb you. I promise. You know why no one will disturb? No one in the 3D will disturb you because you are not disturbed on the inside. That's why. You are not disturbed on the inside. Therefore, the outside shall be smooth as a baby's bottom. So let's get into the baby situation, because now I'm talking about souls and the entry of the physical vessel and the Roe versus Wade and why they consider it controversial because it's sex and death and da. Let's get started on now. I'm gonna give you another little heads up. We might have a little more fucking triggers, especially if you're really religious. I was attempted to be indoctrinated into the Roman Catholic religion when I was like a youngin', so I can say whatever the fuck I want about them. But typically in the Roman Catholic religion, abortion is considered a big no-no. Either which way. And why? Because you're murdering a okay, cool. But they also said that Mary conceived Jesus and ain't spread her legs. I mean, yep, I went there. Oh, I went there. I went there. Yes, I did. Did you know that there's this song? There are a few church songs. Oh my God. That they pretend that like they're talking about the Virgin Mary, and they're talking about like the other things, Jesus and Joseph, right? The fucking night of Bethlehem, and they're really fucking talking about Lucifer, the morning star, the light bearer. That shit's fucking funny. Gracias, Lucifer. But that's the Roman Catholic religion for you. So if you're hard body Roman Catholic religion, I don't know, and you believe that abortion is wrong, okay, you can't kill a soul, and you've been lied to. I can say that because I know, because I broke out of there. Yep, it's a cult. It's a cult. That's another video though, maybe. If someone is taught, and it could be any religion, I'm just saying the Roman Catholic religion because that's the one that I have experience with, they're taught that, oh, it's a murder. Okay, cool. So you can't kill a soul, which now I know someone's going to ask me, oh, but what if it's two adults and someone murders someone? You're still not killing the fucking soul, okay? Now, the physical vessel can be taken out. Typically, if it involves not, because we're going to get into the abortion side in a second because I said I was going to, but just to touch on this, I know one of y'all could be curious. If someone murders someone else or someone commits suicide, the algorithm fucking loves me, I'm sure. Because I just like to talk freely. I'm not going to censor myself. I mean, unless it behooves me to speak in a riddle in the moment, then I will. But I mean, I don't give a fuck.
The fuck, bro?
I say the word motherfucker like at least like 8,000 times a day. So whatever. Either which way. When someone is murdered, that's typically, this is as conveyed to me. If you agree or you disagree, if you have strong opinions on murder or suicide, probably not the video for you either. So whatever. We're going to get a little touch on that briefly now, but I don't want to digress too much, even though I probably already fucking have. That's typically like a soul contract. Murders, a lot of times that is a karmic soul contract. A whole other story. Okay, I'm not, and again, this is not saying anything about the ethics of it, anything about the politics of it. Do I endorse murdering someone? No. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Unless you're really in a predicament where it's either you or the other motherfucker, and you're literally like that's the situation, then it's not murder, it's you're defending yourself. Okay, that's just my view on it. Because there are other ways you could solve your issue with someone else, you know what I'm saying? But typically, like those type of things, you're not killing the soul, no, but there's typically like a soul contract, just like there's typically a soul contract even with a soul that it wanted to enter their physical vessel and then was aborted. Okay,
I'm telling you, bro, this is a hot topic tonight.
So to get back on topic here, so when there's a contract, right, going on betwixt, let's say, a soul that wants to enter a vessel, and this is not always, but sometimes, right, and someone that chooses to not continue with the pregnancy, okay, there might be a soul contract there. Now, this is as being conveyed to me because we're talking now, we're going to transition not away from like the third dimensional perspective. I mean, because we already healed that part of you, okay, like you're past that, and if you're not, you're going to be very, very soon, okay? Because I gave you a blessing in the beginning when I was talking in Latin. That's right. Well, Lucifer did, but he did it. So every soul, before they enter a vessel, they do choose from that higher perspective what they want to experience roughly, and they choose their circumstances when they first enter the vessel. So whether someone chose X or Y or Z or A or B or D, when someone chooses these things, they know what they're doing. They know what they're getting into from a soul level. Now that, again, for the ego mind construct, like, well, they're thinking, why would they have chosen that? Because believe you me, I'm like, why would I have chosen that? But then when I look back on it, I'm like,
Yo,
my circumstances worked out better than I could have expected, because I wouldn't be where I am right now if I had not had those experiences. Bore witness to things, observe things, blah, 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 blah. That's the one thing. So let me ask you this before you proceed, if you need to pause the video. Do you know the reason why you chose to enter your physical vehicle the way that you did, surrounded by XYZ individuals? Do you know why? If you don't know why this, I honestly suggest that not proceed this video, because it might be triggering for you. Or if you choose to, I always say I encourage individuality, but do you know why? Can you find a positive? Can you find a blessing in the situation that you chose? Okay, that's number one, because every soul chooses it, and not every soul realizes that they choose it, right? Because some remain in the matrix, and they're just, or some just, they're going to know why they chose that at a later point. But if you don't know right now, the rest of the video might not be for you. So when someone is able to look back and see, oh, it worked out better than I expect, even if the circumstances seemed a little wonky, like, when you were like in your formative years, you're like, oh, but that shit shaped my motherfucking ass.
I'm fucking pimped today, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, so if you can find the reason why, if you know the reason why you chose that particular situation, good, bad, whatever the fuck,
Namaste.
so you already know that the soul chooses, okay, from their higher perspective, why they want to experience that, but you know that the soul also chooses, they choose to forget that they chose that, right? So that's what they call it, awakening. You wake up in the dream.
Whatever, okay?
So they chose to forget they are a soul inhabiting partially a humanoid vessel. They chose to forget that, and then they waken up, and then they see all how everything was worked out perfectly and magically and beautifully, better than they ever could have expected. And they're like, oh my god, this shit is kind of lit, because now they conduct themselves as a god, piloting the vessel, not the vessel in the 3D mind ego, piloting the fucking soul, or trying to, because you never really pilot the soul with the vessel. It's just the energetic mismatch. You can't do that, okay? It might seem like it, but you're not really doing that, because the soul is always guiding you. I promise you, one of y'all need to hear this. Your soul is always guiding you. Trust, okay? Confido es vivere. So that was for you. You know who you are. When the soul is choosing to enter the physical vehicle, they know what circumstances are going to befall them in the matrix, and sometimes, like I said, it's in agreement. Let's say the one who is going to carry the fetus, right, and the whoever, or let's say the other party involved in the pregnancy has a bond, right? So you can have a bond with like a birth parent, or you don't. I mean, I'm just saying in general. A soul can have a bond with one of them, a soul bond, and then they make their way into the vessel, and then right now sometimes they can have a bond, because we're going to go into like the reason abortions and things like that are because you're not killing the soul, but this is what's happening. Or they can have a bond with, let's say, one of the individuals, but they're not really feeling the other ones. I mean, whatever, right? So you have two individuals, right, who are involved in the same pregnancy. The soul, who's seeing everything from a higher perspective at the point where which the two individuals who are involved don't see, or they do sometimes. I mean, if they're enlightened, but typically if someone is enlightened, they're gonna not be involved in a situation like that, because they know they're in control of their vessel, so they're not gonna be involved in that situation. And if they want to be involved in that situation, they're most likely gonna have the baby because they're expecting it, which we'll get into in a little bit. But this is how, they want me to talk about how someone enters a vessel. Okay, so first scenario number one, the soul chooses all the circumstances, the people, places, situations around it, because it sees from a higher perspective. Okay, because the soul has no age. Even though it's going to enter the vessel and the vessel is going to be like a baby, it's still the soul, right? Okay, cool. So it's either, let's say, choice A. The soul wants to come through for person A involved in the pregnancy, but doesn't want to, they're not feeling person B. And it could be either one. It could be the carrier of the fetus, or it doesn't have to be. It depends, okay? It's either or. So the soul's like, I like you, but I ain't feeling you. Trigger warning, miscarriage. Miscarriage can happen. That can be number one. Be a miscarriage. I just want it because I feel like it might resonate with someone. That's a miscarriage. Okay, they're like, oh shit, no. They're like, fuck this. I don't like the other person involved here. Okay, whoever it is. Or they could wait. They could be like, whoa, wait. It's like you kind of dip your toe in the pool, but then you don't really like, I don't know if I'm feeling the temperature. They want to wait till another moment in time when they know that it'd be more beneficial. Let's say someone has a miscarriage, and then then they conceive another child, right? And then they're even more appreciative of that child because they had the miscarriage. Do you see what I'm saying? So the soul understands that, whereas like on a level, like a physical level, like the ego is not really understand. Unless you're an enlightened being, then you understand that there's meaning behind like everything. I mean, it's a meaning of what you give it, but there's a meaning behind everything. That's number one. Number two, if someone opts to have an abortion, there's still that bond there, okay? There's still that bond, but the soul either doesn't like the other party involved, or they're like, oh my god, they're not ready to go in, or they could be like, wait a second, something in the energy is not right here, because remember, the soul sees everything, right? So however pregnancy ends, if it's an abortion, if it's a miscarriage, the soul that wants to enter the physical vessel sees all of that, right? They see everything, and so they know from a higher perspective what that individual in the third dimensional plane wants. So this is why sometimes when someone is more elevated spiritually, they'll have a connection with a soul that wants to enter a vessel before that soul presents itself, okay? So you can pick that up sometimes. But also for, third dimensional individuals, like let's say there's a highly advanced soul, every soul is highly advanced, but you know what I mean, and they want to come in and they know that the two contributors to the pregnancy, whoever they are not evolved. They're like third dimensional. The soul sees everything that they cannot because they're on third dimensional level, but the soul's like, you know what, fuck it, let me just go in because this is what these motherfuckers want. So it could be a soul contract, right? Because a lot of times, like people that are close to you, like close friends, family members, you'll typically notice like at least one of them, you'll have like a dynamic where it's like, you're bonded to them from other lifetimes. So it could be a karmic bond, or it could just be like someone you thought was really chill in another lifetime and you were best friends, so now you want to come back and you're going to be a parent-child dynamic. It's all different because how many lives does one experience, right? So that's why someone who's enlightened, they can kind of sense the soul. If they want to become involved in a pregnancy, though, they might already know that soul, let's just say from a past life, okay? So those are the enlightened. But for the unenlightened ones, if an abortion happens, the soul sees that and they're like, you know what, these individuals or whoever, they want to have an abortion, or they experience a miscarriage so they can appreciate a new pregnancy even more. If someone experiences something like that, let's say it was unwanted, they have an abortion, but then they might look back later and realize that it was actually all for the better. Because remember, you're not aborting a soul, but the potential vessel, remember, because the soul sees everything, they're like, whoa, there was something with that potential vessel that something would have went wrong, right, with that, and maybe it could have like endangered the carrier of the fetus, right, or endangered the partner of the, right? Do you see what I'm saying? So the soul is looking at that as like, whoa, because the soul sees, like it'll start sending signals to, like, telepathically to the potential carrier of the fetus, or the partner of the potential carrier of the fetus, right? It'll start sending messages like, no, abort mission. Seriously, like, no, there might be something wrong with that vessel, so I'm gonna try again in 2 months. Like, another vessel would be more suitable for what the soul wants to do. Do you see? I don't know if that got confusing. That's also why miscarriages can happen sometimes, okay? So even though it might seem like something detrimental from a third dimensional perspective, it's more like the soul is recognizing, no, now is not the time, or like I said in the beginning, it is bonded to like one of the would-be co-creators of the fetus, but it wouldn't be bonded to the other one and be like, oh hell no, that ain't it. And then again, abortion or miscarriage might occur because the soul is just like, whoa, I don't want that. I want you. I don't want that, right? So yeah, that's from a third dimensional. If the co-creators of the fetus are third dimensional, okay, that's why sometimes those things occur, and it's happening all on like a subconscious level. Like, so if someone gets the idea to have an abortion or whatever, or the idea is given to them, it's coming subliminally, but it's not happening for like a detrimental reason. It's either the timing isn't right, or the soul is just like, you know what, like maybe I'll meet up with you again in another lifetime, because they can see from a vantage point that perhaps the third dimensional would-be parent or whoever is not seeing it, okay? So then, because I know I'm gonna get asked this, okay, so let's say someone has a miscarriage from the soul, like can the same soul come through in a different vehicle? Yes, because there might be another vehicle that comes along a few months from there that they're more, it's better and everything runs smoother. Can they come, or would a different soul come through and take over? Now here's the thing, from what I'm channeling, if a soul is connected to someone where they wanna, because this could even be like a passed on loved one that you knew like from years ago, and then they want to come back as like your fucking kid or some shit. I don't fucking know. You know what I'm saying? But if you're like highly charged spiritual, you'll know, because you'll be communicating with them, okay? And they'll let you know who the fuck they are. If someone, let's say, has a connection, right, with a soul, they're gonna want to be with that person no matter how, right? And they might not either consciously realize it in that lifetime, but they're gonna want to be with that person. But it's like that person might sense them also, and then be attracting like a pregnancy, but it's not with the ideal version, right? So that's why sometimes a miscarriage will happen or an abortion will happen. Then that person, whoever was involved in it, will move on to someone else, and then they'll have a child with that other individual. It's because the soul that wants to come through is signaling to them, no, it's going to work out better this way, okay? So it's like a weird thing to explain, but it's from a soul vantage point. Sometimes that's how it works, because let's say everyone has different like genes and blah blah blah. Like obviously everyone is different, but I'm saying everyone is different, right? So let's say there was like a fetus conceived, but then it's like one of the individuals was like enlightened and the other one was third dimensional, and the soul was like, hell no, I don't want that. I want two enlightened motherfuckers. And it's not gonna happen.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Because that's what the soul wants. And if you are very, very in tune with your spirituality, which I'm assuming you are if you made it this far, but you'll kind of sense what energy that is, and you'll get like a vibe, okay? Can a soul, okay, so what did I cover? I said if someone has an abortion, or they killing the soul, no, they're not killing the soul, because the soul is eternal. So perhaps there was something wrong with that vessel, or perhaps it was just not like the right person that the soul wanted to come through as being like part of, or whatever the case, okay? So it's you having control over your own experience, number one. So if you're not going to be involved in a pregnancy and that's not what you want, it's not going to happen, okay? If you do, then it will. But if you are at that level where you're just you're in no fear, then you are most likely in a level where if there is a potential soul coming down, or if there was a past experience in regards to that, you already know the meaning behind it, and you don't really need to look elsewhere for answers with that, okay? In regards to the soul entering the vessel, that's kind of how it is. It's where it's deciding, depending on if there's like a soul bond there or not with the one of the parents or both of them. It'll be like, okay, so there's kind of like an agreement there, like so and so is going to come through, and right, like that's going to happen, okay? And as far as the soul, I already covered like how the soul, like let's say if the fetus, something happens to the fetus where it's no longer alive, be it by abortion or miscarriage, the soul already knows that. The soul is not feeling any pain from that. The soul is just like, okay, maybe I'll try again in another lifetime, or I'll try again in a few months, or you know what, let me just step away from this for a while. But it'll typically, the soul and who they're meant to, that type of connection, whether either contributing parent, okay, either one of them or both of them, it'll be like, okay, I want it like this, okay? So it could just be either someone wants that, but is with the wrong person at that time, and then they move on to another person, it happens, or they want that, but there's something wrong with the vessel, or they want that, and it's just at a later time, it might be better because the individual would appreciate the child coming into the world all the much more because they didn't get that maybe a few months ago, okay? So there's different multitudes of reasons why that happens. Now, as far as the soul entering the vessel, that's what we say when we're talking about spiritus and the breath, right? Because that's basically, I'm going to go back to the Catholic religion, whatever, but they say the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, right? They say the Father, the God aspect, the Son, which is the body, the physical vessel, and then they say the Holy Spirit, the breath of life, okay? And the breath of life, that is what occurs when the soul enters the vessel. So this happens during the first breath. So when they take their first breath of oxygen, that's when the soul fucking enters the vessel, okay? I know it sounds so trippy, but I mean that's what happens, right? That's what they call the spiritus, they say, because breath, spirit, it breathes life into the vessel. The soul does, okay? It breathes life into the Son aspect from the Father aspect, which is the eye of the all, then you have the physical vessel, the humanoid suit, and then you have spiritus. So the same thing. So that is the first breath. I'm talking about from a spiritual soul perspective, and I already went over the reasons as to why they might decide to not enter that particular vessel or choose to enter it at another time or in perhaps another lifetime, okay, for all the reasons I mentioned. So now that I touched a little bit on like entering the vessel there, I do want to say, because in regards to those of you, like everyone who chose their experience, how they were going to enter the vessel and under what circumstances, sometimes it might seem like, why would you have chosen those circumstances? But from a soul perspective, you will know that you've made a full revolution, because remember I said the soul, when it's choosing, right, it already knows what it wants to do, but then the ego forgets, chooses to forget, and then the soul awakes. So you will know that you have fully awakened, I shit you not, when you know why you chose the circumstances of your birth and the individuals around you or the individuals not around you or whatever. You will see magic in that and you will not regret a thing. And that's how you know that you have fully awakened, when you can look back at every situation from a higher perspective and you don't get entangled in blaming or feeling shame or feeling guilt or blah blah blah. You see how everything that happened, whether you experience positive or negative, detrimental things, beneficial things, right, whatever, beneficial, detrimental are subjective. What someone might see as beneficial, someone else might see as a detriment, right? So use your own discernment. That's why I say all the time with individuality, let your higher self guide you. Okay, so if you can sit and you can say, yes, these were the circumstances I had in my formative years, maybe some of them were great, maybe some of them weren't, but if you can sit there from a higher perspective and then see now why everything played out the way that it did and how the way that it did work out magically, homie, you have made that revolution. We gotta tie it all together, because that's how I fucking roll in this joint.
In this motherfucker, we tie it all together.
Pluto, return, United States. If you're not in the United States, I don't know. If you're watching this, I mean, this is still message for you because you're resonating with my energy. The Pluto revolution, right? You will know that you have made your own revolution past sex and death and all of the fucking ego matrix mind traps. They can be on one hand very alluring and enticing and seductive, but on the other hand, they're considered taboo and there's a lot of fear factor associated with them, okay? That's why there's a lot of fear around sex and death, but we as enlightened motherfuckers, we understand that we choose when we're going to be born, like I explained in all those scenarios, and we also choose when we're going to vacate the vessel.
That's another video though.
Because you do choose when you vacate the vessel. You can also choose the how, but that's really, I mean, you're doing it anyway from a soul perspective, but I mean, when you're consciously aware of it and you know, like, I'm telling you, choose everything, okay? To again tie it together, no one has control of your physical vessel. Don't matter what's going on in the collective, you do. So if you were wondering how you know that you've made it to like a stage of awakening, even more than you might have already been, you will know when you can look at every circumstance that led you up to this point. This is kind of like a side topic, but not really. And you could see the blessings in all of it. And you're like, you know what? I see why my soul chose this, and that. But you know what? I'm done with nonsense and bullshit. I see it. This is for those of you that are already healed. There's nothing going on. There's no emotional triggers. There's no fear. There's no worry. There's no anxiety. I'm not saying that they wouldn't try to present themselves and you might sense them a little bit, but you're like, yo, homie, not today, motherfucker. We observing the fucking fish tank from the higher perspective. We see who the hand is who's pouring food into the fishbowl, making motherfuckers either happy or sad or fight or mad. You see that and you understand that your soul chose it, and you appreciate why your soul chose it, because everything brought you to this moment now where everything is beautiful and bountiful and joyful and perfect and amazing. Let me get into just one more thing in regards to, like, you know, someone who's advanced spiritually and they have like connections with souls who are non-corporeal in the moment and the soul wants to come in. If you are sensing that, because I don't know, there's just, you know, it's the Fenticept and they want me to talk about it. So if you are sensing that there is a soul that wants to come and enter the third dimensional matrix, trust and know that your knowings about that are valid. If any oddities occur in regards to that, know that nothing has control over you. So the soul, if you are trying to manifest that, the soul of the whoever would come in and enter the fetus, they're not controlling you. They just see things from a higher perspective than most individuals. But once you have accepted that you also see things from a higher perspective, now you have direct communication with them. So if there is some sort of soul that wants to connect, that wants to enter a physical vessel, and you and them have a connection, trust and know that that is very fucking valid. You might sense them for a little bit before they actually come in, okay? So if you truly want everything with that to run smoothly, no matter who you are, if you're the carrier of the fetus, or if you're the partner of the carrier of the fetus, or however that works, okay? No matter what's going on in your fucking basement plumbing, I don't give a fuck, okay? If you want that, maybe try to establish a line of communication with that soul so that both of you are on board the same page, how it's going to go down, when it's going to go down, all of that stuff, okay? If you and your partner both have a connection with that soul, I would say you and your partner have those conversations as a group, I don't know, a group meeting, okay, with that soul, okay? Because like I said, the karmic tie with that soul who wants to enter a vessel, it might be someone who's connected to you and your partner, or it might be someone who's just connected to you and they're feeling your partner. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, they're cool, right? Whereas maybe they weren't feeling a partner from previous, right? Where they're like, okay, you know, now let's go, now it's the right time. So you might have felt, because I feel like this might resonate with some of you might have felt that there was a soul that was calling to you, but you weren't with the right person, and some shit happened that you didn't like in regards to that, and you were wondering why, because you were ready and you were good, but maybe that soul saw like, no, this partner right here is no good for you. And then later you find out that person who you were with years ago, XYZ ABC, and you're like, oh, no wonder it didn't work out with them, because this is how they are, and that wouldn't jive with me. Like, do you see what I'm saying? So you might be connected to a soul, no matter what's going on in your basement region, no matter how you, whatever, okay, whoever can be connected to a soul, and then something happens, it doesn't work out, or they've just been feeling a soul for a while and nothing ever came of it, and they're like, wait, I know I'm feeling a soul that wants to come enter this dimension partially via my vessel, you know what I'm saying? But it didn't happen. So know that is valid, but it could just be that maybe you didn't have a strong enough connection where you could sense what they wanted from you or expected from you. You'll know if this is your message, okay? So if you are resonating with the soul, if you have been for years, but you're wondering why it didn't occur, I'm telling you, look at the reasons I just said, look at who you were with at that time, look at who you were at that time, right? Because maybe you didn't evolve enough yet to experience that, have that experience, right? Like, you could have been at a place which was detrimental, but you still might have had a connection to, you know, that soul, right? Let's say it was, I don't know, your grandma from who the fuck knows, great grandmama, right, has a connection with you, wants to be born again as like your child, okay? So you had a bond with them, and so you, after they transitioned,
this is a weird example, I don't know, it might pertain to someone.
Let's say after they transitioned, now they want to come back and chill with you again, but they're like, oh, this motherfucker ain't ready for me yet, so let me just, I'm gonna stay connected with them, but oh, well, that partner's no good for them, I see how they are, right? Like, it could be a whole multitude of reasons, right? But the bond, if you sense a bond with a soul that wants to, you know, have you be like a co-creator of the vessel, whatever, know that is valid, okay? Just because it hasn't happened, or there's some weird situation or whatever, something you didn't like went on, know that is still very much in your reality, because you're sensing it and you're feeling it. So I would suggest maybe try to establish a line of communication with that soul. This way you can get on board so that everything runs smooth and copacetic, you know what I'm saying? Or it don't even have to be your grandmama. It can be like just a regular soul that you knew in another lifetime, like, you know, you want to link up again. You know, it happens. Like, it happens with parent-child dynamic, it happens in sibling dynamic, it happens in romantic relationship dynamic. You know, you could know motherfuckers from other lives, and then you encounter them in this lifetime, and it's like you knew that was meant to happen, right? Like, you just fucking know. You know, circumstances be different for everyone, but that's how it works with these souls that want to enter the vessel as a fetus, right? Coming from you, or coming from you and whoever, okay? So that's just how it works, because I feel like we're gonna get just a tiny bit. This video is,
Jesus, Mary, and Buddha.
This video is really fucking long at this point, so I don't want to, you know, get into too many other topics. But when you have emancipated yourself, you understand that anything that's going on the ego earth matrix, right, it is naturally going to want to drag you into it, right? Because it's the magnetic pull of the ego. All you have to do is just simply look at things from a soul perspective and understand that nothing out there is controlling you. Even though I did say, you know, the soul is like sensing things, that's only because that soul is sensing things from a higher perspective, as not being corporal, not having an ego. So it might seem they are looking at things from a higher perspective, but once you have emancipated yourself, you are able to see the same thing as that soul who it potentially might be coming and sees things. things, and that's why some individuals have connections with someone who's going to be their future baby, even though the baby isn't there yet, because they have that connection. So this video is not to say that the soul chooses you, even though it does, but you chose the soul too, because everything, you know, the poles, everything is one, everything is all connected. And this is also to touch on maybe some of you who were thinking, why would they have chosen, you know, the circumstances they were born into, whatever. They chose you as well as you chose them. And if you look for connections, like with these type of things, and for, you know, for some it might not be like the easiest thing to do. Some of y'all might not want to look at that type of stuff, or some of you might enjoy looking at it, right? Like there's always benefits to things as well. You can see why some individuals in your formative year experience chose you and you chose them. Like you'll see everything is all connected, because you'll just sense it, okay, on a soul level. That is what I have for you in regards to that. That was a lot. So thank you for joining us on this wonderful stroll. Gracias, lo que farà. Ego sumo colus, ego sumo tatai, eoses, pietus,